All right, Brent Portia at TopVelocity.net. This video is going to cover 4 tips to improve your pop time. So we're going to go at it in 2 ways. It's time, obviously, to get the ball out of your glove to second base. We're trying to get under a sub or 2-0, 1-9, 1-8 ideally. That's going to be predicated on how quickly you obviously get to release and then how much speed is in the ball out of your hand. So ultimately, you want to go at it in both ways. You want to try to get quicker and you want to try to put more velocity on the ball. Here's the challenge, is a lot of times there's components where, for example, hip to shoulder separation, if I can get my hips open and my shoulders more closed, I'll throw harder. That will bring my velocity up, but it also, because it creates more range of motion, it'll take longer to do that. So sometimes you have to balance it out. Sometimes you can throw it harder, but you lose speed or you lose on your pop time. So you need to always test that out and see what works best for you. You might find that there's a certain speed, velocity, low 80s, mid 80s, that which is probably gonna be somewhere around low 80s where you wanna be, that you have the lowest pop time at. You might push to mid 80s and then all of a sudden it starts to maybe affect your pop time because you're too slow to build up all that velocity. So we're always balancing that, but let's give you 4 tips here. The first one's gonna be getting into a good squat position. Most catchers fail in getting in squat positions. You should be loading like we do with the 2x velocity sub 2.0 pop time program for catchers. We do a lot of low depth loading, clean pulling, power cleaning in deficits, because this is where you are most of the time. We wanna be explosive out of that position. Here's the thing, if you don't have a lot of mobility there, it's gonna be hard for you to be explosive because more than likely you're overactive. You got muscles that are overactive because they don't have a lot of range. They're at end of range and they're just holding on for stability. So if we don't have good mobility, we're going to be in a position where it's hard for us to get out, because studies show the highest correlation to pop time is how quickly you get out of your squat position. So let's work on that. What's a good squat position? Ideally something shoulder width. If you start going past shoulder width, you're gonna limit how deep you can get, okay? So obviously when a guy's on base, you wanna be sitting so deep. So you're gonna be in a higher position. So you could go a little bit past shoulder width, but I don't like to go too much, because once again, you're gonna be more, what happens is femur on hip, bone to bone, and you're not gonna be as explosive. I wanna be active in my muscle tissue. That's gonna make me quicker out of that position. So shoulder width would be ideal. Feet straight. We don't want to get feet too far open. Then we start going into these valgus positions where we're not going to be able to move quickly, okay? Because it's more of an anatomical loaded position than a muscle activated loaded position. To help you understand that, for example, I can just push my knee in, just find a place where my body stops moving, okay? I'm really resting on the tendons and ligaments and bone at this point. I'm not really stable actively in my muscles. So I'm not gonna be really quick out of this position. Now if I do this, I turn this femur out, which stabilizes my knee, and then I flex into my hip and I squat and I turn my glute on, I got my quads on and my hamstrings a little bit on. Now I stop moving, I'm stable, but I'm also active where I can get out of that motion really quick. So you gotta make sure as a catcher, when you're down, you're not in an anatomical stable position, you're in a muscle activated stable position. Everything is active to hold you in that position, and you're not overactive where you're gonna fatigue. It's just a slight bit of activity. That's why this is so critical to your pop time and to catchers, is being able to get into a mobile, active squat position. So shoulder width, let's squeeze our butts. We really wanna get the hips under us, we wanna squeeze the stomach, we wanna line the spine. I mean, if you have any hip mobility, guys, it's related to your spine. Your spine, you have a poor posture. Once we get into a good posture, our hips start to mobilize, and then we can stabilize our lower legs. To stabilize, I want to take the femurs, turn them out, right? The knees are like, to stabilize the knees like a towel, you want to twist it till it tightens up. Problem is, if you twist it inward, it doesn't tighten up, because the way the ligaments work, they actually tighten up this way. They don't tighten up that way. So you want to turn them out. That tightens them up. And then from there, if you're holding your posture, you're just going to take your butt in between your heels and you're going to drop all the way to the floor, all right? Try not to get too much on your toes. we're gonna overload the ankles if we get in that position, and then those muscles will fatigue. Let's try to get each joint distributing the load at this point. So I want my ankles loaded as much as my knees loaded as much as my hips. And then I want my trunk as vertical as I can. This is gonna support a better pop-up. If I'm leaning forward, I'm gonna try to throw my back up to get up. It's not gonna be as explosive as if my trunk's up and I'm just popping up, I'm just standing up. That's where I wanna be. Definitely don't, like I said, don't wanna be in these positions, don't wanna be in this position, one leg, I wanna use both legs, I'll get up quicker. Same time too, I wanna be down there, I wanna feel mobile. The ankles typically get it first. If you need some help with your ankles, go down to that squat position, take a bar and put it on the knee. It'll apply some resistance and it'll help you kind of open up that area. It's all about stress resistance. You can add a little stress in that position, more of your muscles will find comfort by trying to relax and create more range in those joints. You go both legs, okay? Now you can feel my ankles open up. I'm getting a lot more comfortable down here at this point. Also a good warm-up routine, a good mobility routine should go with this, which we all have at Top Velocity. So once you get down there and you get in a good mobile position, you can just, from here, you should just practicing popping up. You know, it's a little bounce and up, bounce and up. We want to be explosive there. Typically, that's why in our strength and conditioning, we're loading in those positions. So that's going to be key. Let's get really highly mobile and activated, not anatomically stable, muscle activated stability in that position with the vertical trunk ready to quickly pop up out of that position. If I was you, I would spend the majority of my time there. It's like a sprinter getting down in his stance, working in that first step. That's your first step, totally critical to your overall pop time. All right, next one. We're gonna look at coming out of that position, keeping a low center of gravity. I think that's the key. A lot of guys, when they pop out of that position, they wanna come straight up, all right? It's a little bit of a lazy way to do it. Also too, if you don't have a lot of strength, you don't have a lot of core strength to keep a low center of mass, you're gonna wanna pop up too much. I find a lot of low catchers with poor pop times, they just quickly stand straight up, right? Let's keep that low center of mass. So I'm popping up, but popping up to about right there. At the same time too, I'm moving forward as I turn and position my body. I'm not gonna get into all the mechanics of this. It's something I go in depth in the 2X Velocity Sub 2.0 program for catchers. But basically coming out of that position, you're turning everything to close your shoulders off, and you keep that low center of gravity, and you want momentum. Because momentum, whatever energy coming up, I actually would want that to go a little bit to the target. Not too much where I'm stumbling, but not just straight up, which is wasted. I want it keeping that low center of mass and coming up as I turn my shoulders towards the target. Get that push of energy going towards the target, going towards the second base. And then from there would be the next one. So the way you could first train that is you could load it. We use sleds to load that in the Sub 2.0 program, and just keeping your momentum directional, keeping your mass low as you fire up, because we want to harness that energy in the mechanics in the throw of the delivery. So your third tip is going to be what we call hip to shoulder separation. This gets very complicated, and try to give you just a little bit to work with. Basically, when you've popped up, your shoulders are closed. From here, what you're gonna do is coming out of that back leg drive position, you're gonna quickly get your leg under you again for foot plant, and then as you're going into front foot strike, you're gonna push this hip open. So basically what happens is focus through the ground. Don't just rotate it, spin it open, focus through the ground. Kick your ankle, push through the ground as you open front side and open that hip open. And just like hitting, let's get that hip power open as much as we can. So as much as coming out of the pop, you're directing momentum forward as you turn your shoulders. Keep that energy going first through your hip. So that's what I want to feel. Coming out of the squat position, pop up. I'm gonna plant and push and kick that ankle and use that ground force to keep driving my hip open like I'm hitting with the bat, okay? So work on that as much as you can. That's just the first aspect of separation. Out of your pop up, plant, drive, ankle kick, direct that hip open And what your upper body's doing is your hands are braking, you're keeping your arm flexed to 90, and you're getting up quickly to an abducted 90 degree or inside 90 degree arm cocked position behind your head. So what I'm doing, as much as I'm trying to take this forward, I'm trying to bring this back. So I want to feel this going forward, I'm going to feel this going back. Quickly going back. If I take too long, that's where it'll give me more arm speed, but it's going to slow down my pop time to second base. So firing up, closing shoulders, driving hip, breaking hands quickly, cocking the arm up and behind the head. Hit the shoulder separation, the separation between this hip and this shoulder. We want to maximize that for arm speed. That's where we're going to get more velocity if we maximize that. It's going to ultimately work against us with time, because the farther back I go, then the longer time it takes to go forward. So you're going to have to balance that one. You might find if I go back here, I throw harder, but everything's too slow to the plate. If I go right here, still got good speed and I'm quicker to the plate. You're just going to have to work with that. And that's in between your hip to shoulder separation. All right, and going through these quick because these take a lot of time to develop. That's why we give you all that in the 2X Velocity Sub 2.0 program for catchers. Last one, front leg stability. So coming out of this, we talked about how all that energy going forward can be harnessed into your throw if you know how to separate and transfer it. Also too, if you know how to stabilize it and stop it. So when you fire up, it's a high correlation of pop times to the pop-ups. That energy, though, better gets to that pop time improvement if you can stabilize and stop that energy. I'm up, I drive, separate, and I've landed. And as you go into shoulder rotation, external rotation, internal rotation, the whole arm path, this leg needs to not only stabilize, but kick, extend back into pitch release. You're gonna find catchers that throw harder, typically those two, they're gonna be quicker with pop times. They extend their legs as they're internally rotating their arms. So that's a speed thing. That's something you also have to train in your strength conditioning approach, which is a big part of the 2X Velocity Sub 2.0 program. All right, so we're popping up, low center of gravity, hip to shoulder separation, stabilizing front leg, and kicking back, and to release. Those four are huge, and not only improving your pop time, but in increasing your speeds, which is the double whammy that we're looking for, which scouts are going to be very interested to see. Hey, he's quick to second, but how hard is that in his arm? Which is also a good indication how much power comes through your bat. So I hope that helps. Go to subscribe if you like. Go to TopVelocity.net for more information. Like I said, check out the 2X Velocity Sub 2.0 program for catchers.